Hello and welcome to a new episode of Seeking Answers. And I am here in Wollaton Park in Nottingham, where over 40 years ago a truly bizarre mystery began. So I have come here to investigate. But first, I'm gonna need some help. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's find some gnomes. It has often been said that children are able to see things that us adults are not, whether it be the supernatural or, as previously discussed on this channel, legends of folklore. The garden gnome is easily recognisable around the world for their pointed hats and white bushy beards. The word gnome comes from the Latin word gnomus, which translates to knowledge of hidden treasure, or the Greek word gnosis, which translates to earth dweller. Gnomes are said to be the nocturnal predators of the earth. Legend has it that they live underground and guard nearby plant life, while also stashing buried treasure. They are said to be responsible for a lot of the hidden processes of plant life and were important symbols to Northern European farmers. It was only in the mid-1800s when the gnome became a popular garden ornament, with the first ever terracotta gnome being created by Philip Giebel. Their popularity as an ornament soon exploded, spreading across Europe and into the United States. Everybody seemed to have one. But could these harmless-looking garden ornaments actually be housing a dark secret? It was in the evening of September the 23rd, 1979, in Nottingham, England, at around 8:30 p.m, when a group of 6 childhood friends ranging between 8 to 10 years old from the suburb of Radford, 2 miles away, trespassed into Wollaton Park, which was closed at the time, located in the centre of the city. These witnesses consisted of Angela and Glenn Elliott, Andrew and Rosie Pierce, Patrick Olive, and the only other known name is Julie, while the other 2 remain a mystery. Inside the park, the children approached a wooded area which had been fenced off from the public, which is when the kids claimed to have heard a bell sound, followed by 30 extremely small cars, compared to that driven by the popular children's character Noddy, containing triangular headlights moving quickly and silently out of the woodland towards them. Each car was driven by a gnome, accompanied by a passenger. They were described as being friendly and joyful, and could even be heard laughing in a strange way. Some of the children even reported hearing the gnomes speak to each other in a bizarre language that they didn't understand. This encounter is said to have lasted for around 15 minutes, with the gnomes even chasing the children around the park and seemingly enjoying the ride around the wet marshlands, before the kids finally decided to run away. The children claimed that the gnomes weren't aggressive in any way, and that the cars were completely silent but fast, and were able to skip over any ground obstructions. The gnomes themselves were described as being approximately 2 foot tall with wrinkled faces, long white beards, yellow trousers, blue tops, and each wearing a bobble hat. They also claimed that the gnomes glowed in the dark, which was helpful as the sun was setting at the time of the encounter. The children claimed that the cars didn't have steering wheels, but instead a circular device with a handle attached to steer it, though some of the other children claimed that the gnomes just leaned in the direction they wanted the vehicle to move in. Allegedly, they had no horn, just a button. They also claimed to have witnessed gnomes climbing up the nearby trees and poking their heads out of the holes in the trunks. Some of the children claimed that they ran out of the park, but the gnomes themselves refused to exit out of the gate. Where are the gnomes? Do you see them?
Yes.
Where?
Where?
Where? That's a man. He's too tall for it to be a gnome, but I think we're getting close. The next day, the children ended up reporting this sighting to their local school teacher. This led to their headmaster questioning each of them individually and documenting their responses on a tape recorder. He would later admit that every single child told the exact same story as one another, and none of them had any history of lying or making up stories, convinced that they were actually telling the truth, though many of the children's parents believed that they were lying. Regardless, this story did get reported in the local newspaper. Now that the story was public, further claims suddenly came forward with similar sightings in the area, all matching the exact same description as the children's report. A Mrs. C. George claimed that in the year 1900, she not only witnessed gnomes but fairies as she walked past the gates of the very same park. A lady named Alma lived on the embankment of the park and would often laugh at any suggestion of the supernatural, but she did admit that during a family gathering there in the 1930s, they were enjoying a picnic when they noticed little people, no taller than a doll, carefully appear from out of some bushes dressed in fancy clothes. She claimed that they watched them go across the lake on a tiny boat before once again disappearing into some bushes on the other side. Another local known as Mrs. Brown reported being taken around Wollaton Park by a group of gnomes in 1979, shortly before the children reported the famous sighting. She claimed that they had been communicating with her telepathically, and that she was taken to every beauty spot within the park and was then asked to search for a magic feather that they had hidden in the grounds. Were the children just looking for attention which got out of control, with other sightings adding fuel to the fire? Are these accounts of gnomes and fairies to be believed? Or is there something else going on in the wet, marshy woodlands at Wollaton Park? Ever since this sighting in 1979, historians have attempted to reopen the investigation and to even contact the witnesses, who would now be in their 40s. But as the time of this video, none have been found or have come forward, which only leaves the historians and the locals still seeking answers.